Welcome to Bates Custom Creations. We received our Wecreat, and now we are going to do an in-depth video of how to set it up. So if you stay with us, we'll get that going. If you notice, there's the box. And once you open up the box, then you have these racks that you have to get out. And according to the manufacturer, keep the box or else it voids your warranty. There's the actual Wecreat, and once you take it out of the box, there is another rack underneath it. You want to make sure you get that because that is your tray to catch all the debris and trash and everything. Here is your hose to stick out the window like we did. I actually have a picture of it, how we set it up and everything, later on in the video. And here are all the tools that came with it, the cords, the wires to set up the Wecreat. So my husband is going to show you all the little tools that they send you so that you'll be able to set up your Wecreat.
Really cool when it comes to a company sending you material for a DIY. They send you all the proper so virtually no tools required. The company sends you the parts needed to start the system. That is awesome.
And here he has some of the stuff laid out, showing you the different parts and pieces that come with it. And then here is how we set up our hose. We put in a board and put a hole in it and stuck it out the window of my office. Then when you open it up, there's all the goodies. That was the power adapter. The air assist kit. So, removing the foam, and you have to keep it, because if you don't, and you send it back out of the package, it voids your warranty. So that's why it always says to save the packaging. So now he's got another one he's pulling out. Are you taking that foam out? Or are you gonna wait?
I gotta wait. I gotta take those. You need to take a picture of that.
Oh, I see.
Use Venmo to pay for the things you love to do. Visit venmo.me/debit to learn more. The Venmo MasterCard is.
So you have to move those two screws before you can do anything on both sides. And then you have to put them back if you're going to. Okay, so here he's doing one side and then he's doing the other. And then he's going to remove the red tape. I speeded it up so y'all didn't have to watch him unscrew all those screws and everything. So I'm trying to eliminate y'all having to watch so much of what he's doing. Enjoy. Okay, move out the last phone. Now you have to insert the tray, so I'm going to move y'all just a little bit so we can see the front where he's going to put it. There you go. Yeah, he's going to insert it right there.
There's 2 guide rails.
So there's 2 guide rails that you got to line up with in order to get it in there right. So that's what he's trying to do. There we go. And then, boom, it's in. Look at that. Perfect fit.
Make sure you push it back far enough that it feels like it's clipped in. You can feel the resistance when you pull it. Okay, if you'll notice on the laser bed, you'll have it flat, and then on the bottom it's kind of a triangle. So you want to make sure that the triangle part is down in the bed. And there's 2 slots, front and the back, that this will sit in, so that they stay in all one spot. They're not constantly moving when you take product in and out.
Okay.
Once you put the bed trays in, you need to get the silicone plugs. Basically, it's just a little plastic push button. They have to.
They have to be installed.
Yes, they have to be installed. So when the lid was closed, we had the pins, the locking pins for the trowel.
Well, let me back up a little bit so they can see exactly. Okay.
All right, so this hole here lined up with this hole. That was where the locking pin was, so that is in transport, it doesn't move.
So now you got to fill those holes with those little.
So bear with me as I try to get these out. My big fingers with a small plastic bag. And there's 2 of them, 1 for each side where the locking pins were. So the purpose is it's very important that you do not lose those and install these during the operation of the machine. It won't allow no fumes or air or anything else to lose out of the unit. And you just basically just insert it like so. And if you can tell what I was saying before, there's where the locking pin was. And then when you pull the locking pin out and you lift it up, that's where that black insert that we put in. And there is 1 on each side from each locking pin. When you insert them, you will feel like a button that you, when you push in, that they're in and they won't come back out. So once you've inserted the plastic rubber pieces in to decide where the locking pins are. Be sure to close your lid afterwards to be complete, because the next step is going to be installing the air, and you don't want the lid open when you're trying to work into the back. So once you've gotten the plastic inserts with the locking pins and then the door is now closed, or the lid closed, now it's time to install the air assist kit. This one is a little more intricate to work with. Bear with me as I'm unboxing. So if you'll notice, you'll have the electric component that will plug in, so when you turn the machine on, it'll automatically turn this on. If you notice on the bottom, this is the bottom, you'll find loose rubber feet. That you want to make sure is down, because this will vibrate a little bit and you want the rubber feet to keep the vibration to a minimum. It comes with a air hose that you have to be kind of delicate with, because it can kink and you don't want to kink it. You want to try to keep it as free airflow as possible. So when you want to set this up, you want to kind of put it in a spot that it's going to work, that's kind of out of the way, and at the same token, be able to connect without kinking anything. Keeping in mind, your vent hose has to go in and attach to the back of this too. So bear with me as I go to install this, that I may move it 2 or 3 times to get it to my liking, that I think would be the most convenient for the unit. For later, as later application, as we go in farther deeper into this, there will be a laptop sitting here, so that will be connected to this, so that when you're doing your designing, to transfer from what's on your laptop, computer, what have you, to the unit, you don't want none of this to be in the way. So bear with me as I figure out the best application at this time. Okay, so now, as we were talking about the air assist, I'm going to try to turn this unit a little bit so that you can see where the attachments are going to be. And if you notice, I was very delicate with the moving, because you want those pins in and locking screws in while you're moving this, because you don't want to shift nothing around as far as the head and the top, because it could possibly tweak it out of formation, and we don't want to do that. So now, as I spoke to you earlier about the power and the vacuum, or not the vacuum, but the air assist hose, if you'll notice, there's the on and off switch over on the, if you're looking at it from the back side, it's on your left hand side, completely opposite side of your fan, your vent fan. So what we're going to do, and I'll probably get in the way with this, unravel the cord here. And on the back of the machine, let's see if we can see this. Under each connection port, it tells you which goes where and how. So again, I haven't gotten this set exactly where I want it, but for install purposes, alright, if you notice on the end of the plug, it's just got 2 prongs that sits in there, and then what we call a locking nut. So underneath here, you'll see that it says air assist power. This is your air assist power cord. Once you've got those two plugs and you got it lined up, okay, so this will only fit into your assist power in one direction. It's kind of hard to see because it being black and we're not really sunny today, but there's a slot on the end of this. And then inside the actual plug of the power assist on the machine is another slot, which is what we call a guide rail. So once we get that in there, if you notice, we just push it in to where the metal meets the metal, and then we take the locking nut and we just twist it until it's snug. Then once you've got it to a snug, try to turn it just a little bit tighter. Not a whole lot of tightness that you can do with your fingers. Do not use no wrenches or pliers or anything to try to tighten that. The purpose of that locking nut is to keep that power cord in a non-movable position. So the next thing we're going to do is hook up the assist air hose. Alright folks, you might notice something different here. It's a little lighter in here. It's not because the sun is out. I just remember to turn the light on inside the room. Living in Florida, we have abundance of sunshine, so not a whole lot of lights that we use here. So as you can tell, the rubber hose is for the unit. And if you'll notice, there's a difference on each end. The end that has like a blue insert, that's to keep the hose. It's a quick connect. And if you notice, the difference in looks. So keep in mind that this will not plug into your machine. This is for the air assist motor. The one that looks like it's just cut, doesn't have anything on, is what actually plugs into your machine. I have found in previous applications that it's always been better for me to install it into the machine first and then into the air assist, due to the fact is that I may have to flex a little more, and if it's connected to the air assist, I wouldn't be able to flex it as much. So all I'm doing now is I'm just trying to massage it a little bit, not really pushing a whole lot of pressure on it, but just trying to square it up, line it up as straight as possible. Keeping in mind, as I said, I'm not putting that much pressure on it due to the fact is I don't want to kink it. If you kink it, then it's not the end of the world. It just means if you kink it, you're going to have to come back where the kink is and cut that off. So not all is lost. But if you can do it without having to do any kind of cutting or kinking, is always the best. So if you notice next to the power, well, we've already installed that. To the left of that, or how you're looking at it, it could be to the right. Just depends on how you're looking at the back of the unit. But in my application, I'm looking at it from the back, and it's on my left. So I'm going to take this hose, and like I said, I massaged it to try to get it as square as possible or straight as possible without kinking.
I'm firmly holding the front of the unit and staying close. I'm not way back here trying to push it in. I'm trying to stay close. Most applications, it's about a quarter push in. You'll feel it bottom out. Once you push it in, you'll kind of feel it. It feel like it snap in. So once you've done that, just kind of tug on it just a little bit, nothing strong. Tug on a little bit just to make sure you have it seated. Now, we're going to attach it to the air assist motor. In this case here, it's really, there's really nothing you can do as far as keeping this twisted. But if you notice, once this is locked in, this won't twist. But as this goes into your air assist motor, you'll be able to turn it a little bit. When I go to the next step, I was explaining earlier about how I think what's going to work best for me or us in this application. I want to be shifting things around. So don't be alarmed. It's just something to keep the hoses from kinking. And so I'm going to go ahead and attach. If you look on the motor at the top side, you notice it has a lack of a better analogy, a little nipple on the flatter side, opposite of where the power cord is. That's where this unit will plug into. So basically, all you're going to do basically all you're going to do is get it on there, and then you're just going to push. And then you're not going to be able to break it or anything like that as you're pushing it on. And you just push it until it stops. And then basically, that's the install of the air assist. So now what I'm going to do is move on to the next step by turning the unit and then getting it in the position that I want it to be in.
.73 plant review would do. You shoot from nothing more to a house on sale. .73 plant review. Well, listen, you can plan to see something. June 26th at the only place you'll live here. Get us up on the free video. Use the contact message. We got another chance to have Instagram after the
Okay, so now that I've got the unit where I feel at this time that's going to work the best for me, at this, for future applications or future. So now we were discussing about the location of this. Keeping in mind the exhaust hose, which is going to eventually attach to the back of the unit. I would need to make sure that this and this really don't interfere with each other. And during the working process that we're not in the way of bumping it and moving it to where we could possibly kink the unit. There's no real set parameter on where to set this. So again, bear with me. I'm going to pause you for a minute so that I can work on this to put myself in a situation that I'm not in the middle of the camera trying to set this up. So I'll be back. Okay, so welcome back, by the way. So I've got this where I've got my hose, my air hose, in a position to where it won't kink. So as I was telling you earlier that we need to pay close attention because we still have to hook up the exhaust hose. So my cord is out of the way. I have this in a coil fashion so that it would make sure that it doesn't kink. That would allow me to take this hose and eventually attach it to the machine. That's later on. Right now we have a couple other things we've got to do before we can do all that. So in this particular case, it doesn't mean that we have to do it this way. This is just my way. Everybody's application is probably going to be different than my specific setup, but the most important part of all this is the air hose. You don't want to kink it. You just don't want to kink it. Very important. All right. Our next step is going to be actually installing the power supply to the unit. Okay, so to throw a little good job to the supplier of this particular unit, I'm very pleased with the packaging. They packaged this thing very well. Being delivered, most of your delivery companies, they don't know to keep it upright, upside down, upside right, or what have you. But the one thing that I did notice when I unpacked this particular unit, how well it was packaged, how well everything was secure. There wasn't no moving parts or, like Christmas time, you're shaking a package and you're guessing what it is. On top of that, every package that we have opened to install each item so far is labeled. So it makes it very easy to figure out which is what. So when you lay it all out to get ready to install the unit, you're not guessing what box is what. So now our next step is the power adapter. This is what supplies the power to the machine. So if you notice how they all have twist ties. Anything that has any kind of hose or power attached to it has a twist tie to it. So what I've done now is I'm unplugging the power box, and I'm just trying to stretch out the cord a little bit to kind of give you an idea. Looks like that we have about 3 feet, maybe a little over 3 foot. So keep that in mind when you go to install the unit, that you're not too far away to be able to plug it in. This is step 1 of a 2-step process of hooking up the power supply. So on the back of the unit as well, it's on the left-hand side, again, looking at it from the back to the front. You'll see it, and it'll stay on there, DC input. This is a converter, so it converts AC to DC. This unit works on DC power, which is a good thing. That's why it saves you money on electricity. So what I'm going to be doing now is basically the same concept that I did with the air assist. I want to position this. I'm going to plug it into the back first. Again, when you push it in, you're going to feel a little resistance pushing it in. Push it in till you kind of hear it snap. And then just a slight little tug, trying to pull it out just to make sure. Nothing real hard, nothing real extravagant, but just lightly, just to make sure that you have it engaged. So right now, I'm a tidy kind of guy. I like things tidy. I don't, when I have a lot of loose wires laying around, then they kind of get in the way. So right now it looks a little loose and not really in a position where I want it to be. So I'm going to move to the second stage of this install. So So this is the second part of the power supply. And if you notice, it looks just like a computer plug. The great thing about these is they can be universal. You have to pay attention to amperage and payload when you go and install that. So don't feel like you can just go and pull the cord off your computer if this was to go bad or break or something like that, that you can just plug it in. You need to make sure that the parameters are the same. So again, I'm saving the twist ties, and there's a reason why I'm doing that. Most of you probably already figured out why I'm saving them, but it'll definitely help you. So if you notice, the second part of this power supply, the cord's about a little over 3 feet long. Added to the one that's on the end of the power supply is so you basically got almost 6 feet to be able to plug this in. So if you're 6 foot away from an electric outlet to where you're going to have a machine, you should have enough room. So on the back of the power supply, you'll notice the three prongs. Pretty self-explanatory, nothing really extravagant there. Just firmly push it in. Most of the time you will not hear no snap on this. This is just a matter that it's pushed in all the way. Try not to tug it on it, because if you tug it, it could disassemble. So just make sure it's pushed in there good, strong. Now, we're at this point where if you look on the wall, my unit's pretty close to my power outlet. So at this point, I'm going to leave you for a moment so that I can tidy these wires up, and then I'll be back. All right, welcome back, folks. So I've got a position that I feel comfortable with, and if you can notice, this was the end of that tied into the machine. As you can tell, very loosely, I took the an existing wire tie that came with the unit, and then in my application, I have a hole in my table that this is sitting on, so it allows me to put the cores down in there, which is out of the way. So, like I said, I saved the 2 twist ties because I don't like a bunch of wires dangling. Not everybody feels the same way I do, but it's just neat and tidy, trying to keep everything out of the way. So as you can tell now, what I'm doing is basically the same thing that I did with the other power supply, or the other end of the power supply. So basically I'm not really pushing on it, kinking it. I'm just kind of getting them together to try to keep them together. And then just loosely tying it up. So now I'm in a position now to where I can plug it into the wall. Keep in mind, do not plug it in until you're 100% complete with your install. The instruction books that I went through before I started this process, to try to, get the idea of the parameters. I'm actually, this is the first time I've ever worked with this company, and I've worked with a lot of different companies over my years, and I'm pretty pleased with their instruction book. Now, keep in mind, I'm doing the product setup, so I'm not doing the Wi-Fi stuff or the software stuff, I'll be leaving that to my better half. That's what she's good at. So I'm the mechanical guy. I put things together. So in this case now, we've hooked up our power supply and our adapter. Keep in mind that, we don't really like a whole lot of flammable stuff around this unit. One, primarily is self-explanatory, it's a laser. So this stuff that you see on the wall here will eventually move. It just hadn't got moved yet. But if you can keep everything away as much as possible from the unit, it's just in your best interest. As far as the power supply, the black box, if you'll notice, you'll have a very smooth side on the box. And then it'll look like there's a little scratch or a cut in the top of the box. That, keep in mind, is the top of the box. You want that to be visual. It won't be hard to decide because if you look on the bottom, it has the information on what this power supply is, the voltage, amperage, that kind of stuff. And in all four corners, there's like a very small little buttons. That ensures that you know that you've gotten this setting correctly. You want to be able to see the light on the power supply, so if something happens later down the road, you're in the middle of working on something and all of a sudden it just quits working. You don't have to immediately go into the machine and go, oh my God, what's wrong? First thing you want to do is look at the top of that power supply to see if that light's on, because it's very possible that your power company could have shut your power off and without telling you, which is notorious. And it's just a quick way. And if that's the case, then at that time you'll definitely want to unplug the unit because it had already went down into shutdown mode once you lost power. You don't want the unit plugged in at that time when the power turns back on because it could cause a surge. Laser machines, they're delicate, but they're not that delicate in a sense. So just keep that in mind, later down the road. So if you notice, I've got the cord in there. I have everything set to my liking. I'm ready to plug it in, but I'm not completed with the application. So as far as your power box is concerned, somewhere, and I can't give you a time frame, but if you use the machine a lot, if it stays running a lot, that power pack will get slightly warm. Won't hurt anything, it's just what it does. So don't be alarmed if you just happen to come over and you touched it or bumped against it and you're like, wow, that's a little warm. That's okay. That they get that way. So outside of that, the power supply is hooked up. You'd be ready to plug the unit in at the end of the application. So I'm going to leave you at this time for a moment and get set up for the next install. All right, folks, we're getting welcome back again. We're getting ready to hook up the USB cord to the machine. I want to take an extra moment again. I was commending the company about their instruction booklets. The other thing I liked about this is in this particular instruction book they had, and with us looking in the back of the unit trying to decide or figure out where each component is that's what's supposed to be plugged in. On the book itself, or in the book, in this case page 8, the back of the unit, it's all numbered. And if you'll notice, each number tells you what each item is. That is really helpful when you're in a position that you can't get really down in a read where it's at. In my application, it is kind of difficult, as you can tell, for me to get underneath there to look without twisting and turning the machine. So there's an upside to this page, and it's very helpful. So keep that in mind as we're installing. So on to our next step.
So good.
Oh, that's what the reaction to mixing and vacuum gain sense. Let's hear another for Lashley, who mixed gain products.
All right. Now, earlier I told you about saving the twist ties for your cords. In this particular application, I will not be using the twist ties for the cord, considering that this is the USB cord that's going to eventually plug into your computer. So this one, I want to stay as free hanging and loose as possible, because I may have to adjust my computer that's more convenient for me to work at my workstation, and I want to be able to have the flexibility without having to pull it and unplug it or it accidentally unplugging. So if you notice, anybody that's dealt with any kind of USB knows that they're pretty simple. They only plug in one way. You can't mistake and plug the wrong end into the wrong end or the wrong spot of the machine. So in this case here, if you notice, this is like a printer style plug on this end. That's the end that's going to be plugged into your machine, and this is the end that's actually going to be plugged into your computer. So in this application, I'm just going to take, and I can see where it says USB, and I'm just going to plug it in.
Spring is in the air. Time to get back outside with a new Toyota.
All right. Once it's plugged into the machine, you'll feel it. It had some resistance when you plugged it in. Again, just kind of slightly tug on it a little bit just to make sure it's in there. And then this is ready for hooking up to the computer. In this case here, I'm just going to let this cord free hang for now, because I'm not sure where I'm going to actually set my computer. So that takes care of the install of your USB. Pretty simple application. Don't have to be in no rush to set your computer up at this time, because you may be moving it frequently times to make it convenient for you to work, to be able to coincide with your machine. We're not finished with the process of install yet, or hooking the system up. So at this time, I'm going to let you go again, and I'm going to prepare for the next install. All right, welcome back, folks. Our next application is going to be installing the exhaust hose. But before that, I missed a step earlier with the USB. Along with that USB port, if you notice, it comes with an adapter. This adapter is able to USB. You can plug it into a computer, a laptop. By using this adapter, you can plug it in pretty much like so that you could use a tablet. Most tablets, are almost universal. Some Droids don't match up, but for the most part, the technology has gotten really close to trying to match, because a lot of people were complaining that they've got to buy 50 different cords to do 50 different things with 50 different units. So in this case here, you can actually take this and plug it into an iPad. A lot of folks out there like I'm a Droid guy myself, but in this application, it will work with an eye as well as a Droid. So I just wanted to reassure you that being as a very small unit, make sure you put it in a spot that you don't lose it. You could probably get one aftermarket. I'm not sure. I don't generally, pretty much all my electronics come with everything I need to do what I need to do. So I'm going to set this aside for now. We're going to move on to the exhaust. All right, welcome back, folks. I got everything together that we're going to need to hook up the exhaust hose. In this application, the exhaust hose itself, as you can tell, I modified a port to go out my window. There's a lot of different ways that you can install this. Venting. I move a lot of things around a lot. Nothing really stays stationary for real long other than my cabinets. And sometimes they get moved. So during my installs, I try to think later down the road. So if something was to happen, again, we live in Florida. We have hurricanes, we have major afternoon storms that could put us in a very vulnerable situation. So I try to make my applications in a sense where I can actually take it out of the window, close the window for safety reasons during a heavy storm. I don't want moisture getting into, and I say moisture, rain, blowing into my hose and then creating a water trap in there that'll eventually could hurt my machine. So, like I said, there's different applications. You could actually use a dryer vent if you want to penetrate a hole through your wall that you know for a fact that you're not going to be moving this machine, that it's going to stay there. But then it kind of takes the portability away from it when you do that. The time that it would take you to have to disconnect it from a dryer vent that's penetrating your hole in your wall, and you want to relocate it to a different shop or a different office, or even a show in this matter, if you're in a position where you travel and do shows throughout your state or city, what have you. You want to be able to keep it as mobile as possible, but at the same token, secure as possible. So with that said, like I said, there's really no direct application to installing this. Just make sure that it's exhaust outside of your working environment. That exhaust is what helps exhaust the fumes from the unit, so that I'm not an engineer, not an architect, so I can't really tell you what the harmful status is on that. But it's always best that when you have a vent of any kind that's going to vent something, an exhaust vent of some kind, you want to exhaust it out of your environment and into an environment that will not cause no harm. So with that being said, it's time to move on to the actual install. Give me a moment. I'm going to have to readjust the camera so that you can see what I'll be doing. All right, folks, I got the camera repositioned, and we're ready to install the exhaust hose. So along with the packaging, these all come with it. It's a pretty cool setup. I really like it. I like the convenience of how you're installing and the convenience of how everything plugs in and so forth. So we're going to move on to the actual installing the the cup, the boot, however you want to look at it. Don't really know what the actual scientific name to this is, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You know your hose is going to hook onto there. This is actually going above the machine. On the face of this is like a rubber pad. That is important. If that rubber pad isn't there, get with the manufacturer. You need that rubber pad. That's going to help any, as it's exhausting, it's not going to allow any of the fumes or exhaust to come out. So, all right, so now that I've showed you that, on the back of the unit, you'll see a little mini fan, and then you'll see 4 studs. And on those 4 studs, you're going to see 4 nuts. The handy-dandy wrench that they send you is actually pretty awesome. So in this case here, you just want to take and loosen those up.
Lefty loosey, righty tighty.
Yeah, they only go one way. So once you've got them loosened up, and they're not down there that tight, so you just want to take and unscrew each one. Try not to lose them. They don't send any extras. You could probably go to a hardware store and match up the nut, but then that's just time that, you have to get in your car and drive to your nearest hardware store to try to match up the nut. It's very important that you use all of them for the correct seating of that shroud. Bear with me as I'm trying to get all the nuts off. They're not that difficult. I just have very fat fingers. All right, so now that I have all 4 of the nuts off of the back of the studs, by looking at the unit, you can tell that there's really no special way to go on. They're located in whether you turn it this way, that way, it really doesn't matter. The studs are going to match up to what you have. So you want to take and slide it on, and with one hand, hold it, and it doesn't matter which corner you start. Just start with one corner. And of course I started with the easy corner first. Alright, put that on there. Then go to the opposite corner. Don't go into a line, but go into the opposite corner. And that's fat fingers. And then just kind of twist it by hand to where they're snug. You don't have to put the wrench on it yet. We want to be able to get on all 4 nuts on. And if you notice now, I just went, once I've got the 2 corners done, then it doesn't matter which next one you use. And I did, I saved the hard till last, so. All right. All right, so now that I have all 4 nuts onto the shroud and I've got them hand secure, in this situation again, start with opposite corners. I have always in the past felt that if you started in opposite corners, then you get a little more square seal. if you start with one side versus, you know, and then move to the other side, then you could have what we call a pivot. And that pivot will allow the one side to seat really good, but then when you go to try to seat the other side, now you're resisting it and you're taking in a position that you could bend that or not get a flush seal all the way around. So in this case here, I'm going to go in the direction that I actually installed the nuts. So I'm just tightening the nut down, just, you know, a few turns, and then I stop. Then I'm going to go to the next corner, the opposite corner, and then I'm going to turn a few turns. And all I'm doing is going by my past experience, by the feel of the tension of the nut as I'm tightening it. If you noticed when I was turning it, it wasn't a full turn. It was about a quarter of a turn each turn. That kind of gives me an opportunity to feel where I'm at. Also, at the same token, if you look at the two corners, the bottom corner and the top corner is where I started. You can also tell by how far the stud sticks out past the nut. That kind of helps you make sure that you've got a nice, even. You don't want this to set out, you know, so far that it doesn't match the one that, you know, you started with in this application. So in this case here, I'm a little long. So instead of backing it off, I'm tightening the first one that I put on to kind of match. Once you get that done, then you feel like you're comfortable that you've got a good seal. So now at this application, it doesn't really matter again which one you're going to start with on the opposing corners. In my case here, I'm going to start with the hard one first because of the position it is. It's not that difficult to do this. So here again, what I'm doing is tightening the opposite bottom corner to what looks to be about the same distance of the stud showing through. On that particular screw, there's a stud on the back, and it's a fire safety outlet that's really kind of close to the nut that you're putting on the bottom corner. So, you know, like every wrench, you know, the concept is to put the wrench on and turn it this way. In this particular application, it's okay to go into your nut at this and twist it. Being that that's so tight in that corner. So now what we're going to do is, I've already finished that opposite corner. Now I'm going to do this corner. And it seems like I'm turning it a lot, but I'm not. It's about a quarter of a turn each time. Just because I'm trying to show everybody, you know, how easy it is. So now what I'm doing is I'm going around, and anytime that you're doing a 4-bolt pattern, you tighten one side a little more than the other, then you'll get a little flex in there where it's not completely seated, you know, nice and square. So now I'm just trying to go around and make sure that everything's snug and not loose. And then I have about the same distance of the stud sticking past the nuts. And in this case, it's it probably sounds a little harder than it is, but that's just from the nice seat. So now I can look on all three sides. Of course, without lifting the machine, I can't see the bottom side. But on the sides, all the way around, I can look at it and see that my sponge on that face side looks pretty even. So it makes me feel very comfortable that it is sealed. So now that we've got the shroud installed, we're ready to hook up the hose. So, like I had said before, I had positioned my hoses, my air assist hose and everything, so that it wouldn't interfere with my exhaust hose. So now I'll bring my exhaust hose and get it somewhat close to where I want it to be. And then if you notice, it comes with a hose clamp. Great idea. That way I'm not taking a chance of it slipping off or blowing off. Awesome idea. In my application on the window, mine is clamped on the outside side of the window and not the inside. So now what I'm going to do is, I got the hose kind of where I need it to be, I'm going to loosen the clamp up. And the cool part about this little wrench is you don't need a screwdriver. Just take the back side of the wrench, put it in there, and twist. It's not that difficult. So once I've got it in, there again, lefty loosey, righty tighty. So I'm twisting it to where it's not coming apart, but yet it's out far enough. And I'll explain to you why using that other end of that wrench. So now, in my application, I want to make sure this is in a position that I'll be able to get to tighten it. So I'll put a dry run on it and put it in a position to see, okay, well, if I put it on this side, I'm not going to really get to it that well. So I'm choosing to put it on this side about halfway. I mean, you can put it up at, 3/4, or in this case, you can actually do it on top. In my case, I'm going to be doing it kind of here in a 3/4 area, due to the fact is, as I tighten it down, it's going to slightly fall. So before I do that, I've kind of got my hose positioned to where I want. I'm going to take and gotta loosen it up some more. So now I'm going to put it on my hose. And if you notice, the hose is corrugated. So when you go to clamp this, you want to make sure that it falls in between the two metals of the corrugation.
So what are you working on? Get outside and get spring ready with everything you need for outdoor projects.
And this takes a little bit of work to get it on. So don't get frustrated. It's that's just what they do. I'm making sure that I have this opened as far as it can go without actually separating. And if you twist it and oh my goodness, you went too far and it's separated, don't be alarmed. Take your thumb, and if you look, there's kind of a guide there. Just take your thumb and your finger and hold that down, and then turn this to tighten. And then when you're doing that, it'll grab. And then you're back to where you were at.
So can you do that while you have and put it on the hose and then do that?
Yes, you can. Hard part is, if you take this apart and then try to wrap it around the hose, the hard part that I found is being able to get your hand around everything hold the hose onto the unit, get this to strap out around it. So what I'm going to do, and yes, it's a little harder, but I just kind of squeeze the hose to get it into. Now keep in mind, I'm not putting a whole lot of pressure on this. This is just flexing the hose, the metal, to get into the band. Yeah, it takes a little work. Oh no, I had it too loose, so it come apart on me. All right, so back before, what I was saying is no harm, no foul here. You just want to make sure that this bracket's in here, and if you notice, it's still separated. Same concept. I'm going to hold this down, and get it to where I can get it to grab. And as you can tell, I've got it snug. So in my situation here, what I'm doing is I'm putting it about a second, somewhere between the second and the third ring in between of the hose. So when I go to slide it on, and as you can tell, I'm not positioning my hose yet because I want to do it's going to help me to install this. So once you get that, slide it on, just kind of take your fingernails there and work it around the shroud. And then I just use a little twisting motion, and then I'll take the clamp and just kind of work the clamp in the metal towards the front of the unit. And this will probably be the hardest part that you'll have to work with. And as you can tell, I'm doing a twisting motion, and then as you can tell,
Click the banner to see the important safety information and prescribing information. Don't just slow down bone loss. Build new bone in just 12 months with a veteran. Ask your doctor today.
and all right, there you go. I got one section of my hose that's in here a little too far, so I got to pull it back off, and then see how it's at too much of an angle, so I've got to slide this back. And again, folks, this will probably be the hardest thing you'll do. All right. So now I've got the hose slid on there. I'm pretty good. So I don't know if you can tell, but I don't have that hose clamp all the way to the face. I have it 3/4 of the way slid on, but I don't have it butted up. The reason for that is when I go to tighten it, I have room to get my wrench in there and tighten it down. I recommend you using the wrench versus going to get a screwdriver. Don't get me wrong, folks, a screwdriver would be the easiest. But by doing it this way, guarantees me that I am not going to screw this too tight that I could crack the shroud. or cut into the hose. You're only going to be able to twist that so tight with the back of this wrench. So I've tightened it to where it's a good and snug. And when you tighten it, you're going to notice the wrench flexes a little bit. Once that wrench flexes a little bit, then you know you've got it good and snug. So once I've done that, now I'm going to try to grab the hose. Not real force, but just try to. The exhaust on this isn't that strong, so it's not going to be a whole lot of pressure there that's going to force the hose off. But you want to make sure that that's good and snug and that you can't wiggle it back off. So basically, that's it of installing the hose. So now, like I said, I'm in a position that I had set everything up to where I could put my exhaust hose in and get it positioned that I feel is not going to hinder anything in my unit. I'll lift the lid, and if you notice there is a slight pinch, that's not going to hurt your hose, but I'll bring my hose down a little more. So I brought it down. Still a small pinch, but it's not in a situation that it's going to hurt it. So in this case here, I can lower the lid, position it to where it's below my lid so that it doesn't feel like it's pinching. So at this point, folks, I believe we're close to having everything installed. So I'm going to let you go for now, and I'll return with our next step. Okay, folks, welcome back, and the install is pretty much done. While I was away, I took a minute just trying to, make sure that I had everything positioned the way that made me feel comfortable during the application, during the use of the machine. So, fortunately, folks, I hope you enjoyed this small tutorial of the actual install. I'm pretty happy with where everything's positioned. I'm actually ready to plug it in and use it, but that isn't the next step. As you can tell, it's pretty simple. I have the free hanging USB cord for the computer, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is because the next step is the software install.
And we'll be doing a separate video for that. So follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok for more tutorials.
Absolutely. Folks, have a wonderful day.